Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of This Week in Travel. My name is Gary Arndt, coming to you from a snowy Minneapolis, Minnesota. Unfortunately, one of our regular co-hosts is not with us today. Chris is playing the role of Grinch. He sent us an email basically saying, and I'm paraphrasing here, this is not an exact quote, "I hate Christmas, I hate everything about Christmas, so I'm not going to be on your show before Christmas. P.S. I hate Christmas." I'm paraphrasing, but Chris is not with us today. So if you're a Chris file, you're only tuning in for Chris, probably just want to delete the show now. However, we do have Jen Leo. She's a trooper. She's here. How are you doing, Jen?
I love Christmas, Gary.
I believe that you do.
I'm doing great. I'm coming from a overcast but wet Carlsbad, California. Not the usual 74 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh, that's too bad. It's 36 right now here, so kind of a heat wave coming in. Actually got into the 40s a couple days ago, so it's been unseasonably warm. But to compensate for the lack of Chris, we got two guests, not just one. And our guests this week have been on their honeymoon now for, what is it now, 4 years? Close to 4 years? It's Mike and Ann Howard from honeytrek.com. How are you guys doing?
We're doing good.
Great.
Thanks for having me.
And where are you coming from today?
We are coming in from the Poconos in Pennsylvania, where I grew up, and we actually flew from Los Angeles, where it was 60 degrees, to Pennsylvania, where it's 65 2 days before Christmas. So it's unseasonably good.
They were trying to. He grew up right across from a ski mountain, and they were trying their darndest to make some snow happen for Christmas, and some rain came, nothing to show for it.
El Nino.
El Nino.
We actually saw Gary's show last week with the RV couple, I think, and you were doing it from your mom's basement, so we decided to fly home to my mom's to do the show.
I like it. And now, for those who are watching our Google Hangout or our YouTube video, there's a map behind you. Is that a map of your travels?
It is actually, yeah.
This was actually my Christmas gift from him after our initial whirlwind, moving every 3 days around the world when we hit our first 33 countries and 6 continents for 2 years. So that is our route with photos and currency from different places, and so that was a very nice Christmas gift.
I like it. I can only see the lower half, but I like it.
We'll show it to you.
Well, why don't we get into some news stories? We got a couple of them to talk about this week. This one from Flyer Talk I thought was very interesting. A 19-year-old Chinese hacker was arrested and scammed $150,000 from flyers in China by doing a rather ingenious hack. What he did is he was somehow able to put himself in the middle of an airline's reservation system. So as people were registering, he was collecting the names and email addresses. And what he would do is he would email people on the flights and basically say, your flight's been canceled. To get you on a new flight, there's going to be a $50 change fee. And so people would pay the fee, and then they would show up at the airport, and they would board the flight that they were already scheduled to be on, which had never been canceled in the first place. Got caught eventually, but I don't know, I thought it was actually kind of clever. And I assume none of you have any opinions on it.
Oh, I have an opinion on it. Like, coming from kind of a computer background and thinking about like security holes and the ways people can access things, I think people are so nervous about like using their credit card at Target or buying something on the internet. But in reality, you would think, and I'm thinking about how this guy might have done it, if you have access to someone's email, you can pretty much do forgot password on any banking website or any airline website. You can read what flights they're coming in on. You can basically, you'll know everything about them. And this guy might have like been at some ISP in China, let's say, and he might have had access to everybody who's getting reservations from American, and then just auto sending an email that says, oh, I see you're on flight 764 to Tokyo. Here's the new link to rebook your flight for $50. Like, with access to email, I think people need to be more secure about that, because it's everything that can, you can open up a whole can of worms once you get into someone's email account.
Yeah, I think Oh, go ahead.
I was a little surprised that nobody noticed that if you say that the plane is out of order and you need to be rebooked, but you're still on the same flight and the same plane, how come nobody noticed that nothing changed?
I think people are not necessarily savvy travelers. If it's not something you do on a regular basis, and if the airline says, well, you got to pay $50, then there are people that will just do it.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a certain fear around flying. I think, my mom, for example, who's a pretty, chill, laid back lady for the most part, gets so uptight when it comes to flying. She wants to be there 5 hours in advance. She's, checking in and printing all her stuff, and she's becomes kind of someone else when it comes to flying, because there is a lot of anxiety for people. So your knee-jerk, I can't miss my flight, oh no. So I don't know if we're playing on that fear and anxiety, and that's part of the success of that hack that he created.
Yeah.
The moral of the story, just not to belabor the email security, but when somebody emails you something, don't ever click it and give your credit card or your login information. If it's from your Chase Bank, we'll just go to chase.com. If it's from American Airlines, we'll either call them up or go to American Airlines and log into your account. Because whatever you click on, even though it looks exactly like it's coming from the airline, it very well might not be. So.
And checking that domain, because maybe that was, m.united.com, or or that being able to make it look like a domain, but it's actually one-off. So checking the receiver and sender.
Next news story comes from the Daily Mail, and it's not as sophisticated as that. I think I'm getting an echo from someone. My voice is confusing.
Well, I notice a time delay on Mike and Ann. Like, I hear their voices and then I see their lips move a little bit later. Is that me? I'm in the room with the router today, so.
Yeah, we're also in the room with the router. We don't have a headset on though. That could be the.
Should we try and do a headset and split it?
All right, now it's kind of gone away. But anyways, next one. Couple goes to Burning Man, leaves their house in care of a house sitter, hands him the keys. Within hours after leaving, the house sitter puts the house up on Airbnb for $2,000 for 5 days. And the funny thing is, the only reason they ever found out is because the person that got the house knew the couple because their wedding pictures were on the mantle.
Amazing.
How do you know? I mean, if you were to put your house in someone's hands, I mean, and I guess the police didn't do anything about it because they willingly gave up the keys to their house.
But I can tell you that person who is the house sitter in that will never get any house sitting gigs ever again. So I mean, it's a once and done thing. Maybe they made $2,000 off the deal, but they're never going to get another house sit on any website, especially with this kind of story. I mean,
that whole system is built on trust. That house sitting, Airbnb, it's that it works because there is good in the world, and that most people aren't con artists and do it for the love of sharing and camaraderie. And when people abuse it, it always makes me so sad because it does kind of hurt the whole group, because it raises more flags and levels of distrust.
A little bit. I mean, I think it hurts the group a little bit in that it comes up in the news and other people might not use Airbnb because of that. But I think it's a pretty neat system the way that it's both crowdsourced, it's self-policing, and it's an ecosystem that does more room nights than Marriott, but there's no actual ownership of any of the rooms. It's just all done by the users interacting with each other. I think it's a really fascinating thing that they have so few issues and thefts and things like this compared to the number of room nights they're doing.
But that's Airbnb, but it was a house sitter, so that's assumed that it was a free, someone house sitting in exchange for free lodging, which we're huge fans of, do a lot around the world. But they, sorry, that's my train of thought. Basically, that system is very much built on trust, so that you're already getting something free, and then you're abusing it by then trying to make money off of something that you got for free. That's where it bothers me.
It's also interesting that you would think that you would need a house sitter for 5 days. So maybe there were some pets involved. Also, the price, $400 a night on Airbnb, you're looking at a good-sized house, I think, for $400 a night. So maybe it was pretty nice or something. We have a house in Charleston that we rent out, and I guess we've been doing it for, I'm not a numbers person, so I don't know how long we've been doing it. Let's just say about a year and a half or so. And we have only had one incident, and it was, we thought we've been running really good. So say we've had, I don't know, almost 100 nights in the house. I think it was in number 90 or something. We got a hole in the wall, and that is the only thing that's happened. And it wasn't like the guests didn't say anything. They did. They told us right away. I don't know if I believe their story, but they said their elderly father, like the grandfather in the family, got up and fell off of his chair and put a hole through the plaster wall. And the hole was, I don't know, maybe about this big. So I don't know about that, but they admitted to it right away. We used their security deposit. I think we got some additional money for fixing it on top of that. But I think that's running pretty good for about 100 guests or so.
Jen, how are you organizing that when you're in San Diego? Do you have someone that cleans the house, or?
We have both. We have a local property manager who is on site and helps and communicates with the guests. She organizes a cleaning person as well as the gardeners and any handymen that we need. And then my husband does a lot of the detailed stuff with the banking, and since we also use HomeAway. So HomeAway doesn't sync with Airbnb. So if somebody rents on HomeAway, you have to immediately change the schedule on your Airbnb calendar. So we do it twofold. My husband does the detailed stuff, and we have a property manager for local.
So does that pretty much cover the costs of having the house?
Oh, more so. Mm-hmm.
Oh, so you're actually making money on it?
Yeah.
Oh.
And it's too bad Chris isn't here, because Chris Airbnbs, I think, a room or so in his house, and he's doing well at it. Did you know that, Gary? Did you know Chris Airbnbs within his house?
I think he mentioned it once on the show. But yeah, it's, Airbnb, it's something I've done once. I always feel kind of strange staying in someone's house. The times I have searched it, getting an entire house when it's just me traveling is really expensive. I think a lot of Airbnb rentals make sense if you have a family or a group of people. But if you're just traveling alone, I haven't found a lot of cases where it makes sense or where I would want to do it. Like being in someone's house is always just kind of makes me feel weird.
Is that because you wouldn't want to share a room, Gary? So a single person could have a room within a house as opposed to renting the entire home.
Which we love. I mean, even as can you guys hear us okay?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, even as a couple, we would actually, even if it was the same price, and especially if we're in a different country, we would prefer to be in a shared home situation where we're in one room and the homeowners are also there, as opposed to having our own big home with 5 extra rooms. Like, we love, because we're especially into homestays and real local experiences and meeting people and sharing meals. So we actually start our search with shared home first, and if we can't find anything, maybe we'll go to private home. But to us, that's like a really neat way to get a local experience, and they give you the subway maps and tips and where to eat, and you maybe cook them a meal, they cook you a meal. It's a really fun experience.
And if you think about it on, the classic bed and breakfast example, it's like having a private bed and breakfast where it's truly the homeowner is there just for you, and who is usually very house proud and proud of where they're from, and have gone above and beyond for us to make sure that we're having a great time. They come away thinking that their city's the greatest city in the world. We just did an Airbnb in Santo Domingo last month where it was adorable. It was a woman who had a daughter who was 7 years old, and she had drawn us pictures that was like corazon, and it was like a heart and a welcome and candies, and it's just so many little personal touches that you'd never get from a hotel. Or walking in, we did an Airbnb with a whole house in St. Louis we were working on a video project there, and it felt so lonely walking into this house where you had no context for where you were and who was there. So it makes it so much more inviting, I think. But teachers on that, where you're coming from too.
But Mike and Ann, shared room in a house. You're on your honeymoon.
Not a shared room.
Shared a house. Shared a house. So you've got the room next to their room. You're on your honeymoon. Nudge, nudge. You want that kind of
our honeymoon,
audible intimacy revealed.
But when you're on the road for well, what is it? 4 times over 1,000 days. Not
So maybe you did the shared rooms after your first year. The shared home, not the room.
And that's how we like to travel, is sort of the highs and the lows, the super local to super luxury. I mean, that's kind of what made this honeymoon so crazy and unique, is that we also stayed in over 100 5-star resorts, but then we also probably did 100 homestays, where it was couch surfing to Airbnb to house sitting and camping to, we love that variety, because everything can get old if you just do it one way, but that keeps us on our toes and more engaged with the locals, so rather than isolating ourselves in some fancy place.
Yeah, you can see both sides of what a region has to offer. Like, we love doing a trip to a region, where we'll homestay and then literally hitchhike to a 5-star resort, which always freaks them out when we arrive in like a local's car or on like a super local bus, and then from there we'll get directions on how to get to the local bus and get to our next little homestay. So we're always doing this kind of roller coaster just to see what a region has to offer, from the really local side to what is their luxury, what is their top class experience. It's been pretty wild.
Well, you've had so many adventures. I want to hear more and more and more about it. But Gary, did you want to do a couple more news items first?
We can do one more before we get into that. Jen, you had talked about having a hole in the wall. This story also involves a hole in the wall. John Parsley, who's 62 years old, of Gonzales, Texas, drove his pickup truck through the lobby of the Comfort Inn in Alva, Texas. Basically, he had a bad experience and was threatening that he would run his truck over them and their property. So he smashed his truck into the lobby of the hotel just to prove he wasn't bluffing. After doing it, he got out of the truck and walked over to the police. And he's being held on a bunch of different counts of assault and battery and use of a deadly weapon and stuff like that. And what was funny is the hotel manager, talking to the media, said, "We're #1 on TripAdvisor and don't have any angry guests."
I love the fact that he plugged TripAdvisor there.
Oh, I guess they have one. I don't know if there's much to say about this, but disgruntled guests and disgruntled airline workers are kind of a staple of the show. I have one more before we move on, and this is kind of an interesting one. I'm not really sure what to think of it. So there's a woman who works at ExpressJet. I think it's a UK carrier.
Yeah.
And she converted to Islam a couple of years ago, and she was a flight attendant. And a couple of months into it, she realized, and she wasn't aware, so she knew that Muslims couldn't drink. She was unaware they couldn't serve alcohol. So she filed a complaint with the airline saying that she can't serve alcohol anymore because it conflicts with her religious beliefs. What do you think of this? On the one hand, I'm thinking she's been a flight attendant for a long time. She knows what the job entails. She was even serving alcohol after she converted for quite some time. Now she doesn't want to. Part of me says, okay, well, this is part of the job and this is what you have to do, and certainly you know it. On the other hand, the airline should try to make reasonable accommodations for people's beliefs. What do you think they should do?
I was thinking maybe she could serve them unopened and unmixed and kind of just leave it there and say, if you want to drink this, you can drink it, and if not, give it to someone else.
I think even having a can of, like an unopened can of beer or an unopened mini bottle would still be a violation of what she is trying not to do.
Yeah.
I think the job description is what it is, and the job requires it, and if you don't want to do it for whatever your reasons are, don't take the job. But
Well,
I don't know that much
in
about
this case,
religious
and
accommodation.
it's not just Muslims. There are various Christian sects. I want to say like Seventh-day Adventists and others that also shy away from alcohol and are not allowed to do anything with it. But what I think makes this interesting is that she was a flight attendant first, then converted. So I don't know, if it's a long haul flight, there are things that a flight attendant could do, like, how like there's one with the food tray and then there's one with the drink tray. And so you could certainly have one flight attendant hand out the meals and another one do the drinks. So that's not a problem. On a shorter flight, you pretty much have one flight attendant that kind of does everything. And I don't think you can pass it on to someone else because of just the nature of the flight. So
I don't know the size of Express Air. What about the flight attendant for the first class area, and they're serving champagne or wine to the first class?
If it's Express Air, I'm imagining it's a pretty small flight. Sometimes only one, stewardess on a plane. But I kind of lean with Jen there. Like, if you change midway your belief system and it doesn't, align with your work, like if your religion says you're not allowed to handle meat and you're work at a butcher shop and you change religions, well, maybe you also have to change jobs at the same time that you change your belief system, because it's tough to ask these businesses. I mean, it's borderline impossible if you have a one stewardess plane to do it. So I don't know, but it's a fine line. You want to be respectful of other people's religions and their choices, and
then there's so many. Then it's the flying spaghetti monster religion. I don't know if that's a whole other topic, if you've heard of that, where people can just make up things too, and to always find loopholes and always find ways that they can get their needs met. So it's a really tricky, really tricky.
All right, I think that's it for news. Jen, you may proceed with your questioning.
Well, Mike and Ann, first tell us about honeytrek.com and how you got started in this amazing adventure.
So, how we got started. We were both working in New York City for about a decade. Just had pretty normal 9-to-9 lives. I was in marketing and Ann was an editor. And we both love to travel. We do, 2 trips, one abroad, one domestic every year, 7 to 10 day trips, pretty standard. And then I was in Germany actually for Oktoberfest, and I was over there with a few buddies, and we met up with these German guys, and they have a different idea of what a long trip is. When we were talking, I thought, he's told me he went on a long trip, so I thought, okay, that's 3, 4, 5 weeks. That'd be a pretty long trip. And this German guy tells me that he and his girlfriend just went on a 52-week long trip. And I immediately thought he was either a millionaire or he just dropped out of society and, tied up a bag and went on the road. And he said he just had normal lives. He was also in marketing, and that they did their trip for $100 for the 2 of them per day, with flights, hotels, food, lodging. And I dropped my beer on the table, and I was awestruck that he did this. And then he told me, oh, he's got multiple buddies who did it. Somebody in his family did it. His coworkers had done it. So it was wow, this is really a thing. So I came home to Hoboken, where we were living at the time, and I told Ann this story.
And we were engaged, and one, I was just flabbergasted that this was possible, because doing the math on it, we're like, that's less than our apartment just to sit here and do nothing. And then we also, in conjunction with where are we going to go on our honeymoon, and the list was just running off the page. We're like, when are we going to see these places with 10-day vacations? This isn't even remotely possible that we can tick off in a fraction of this list. What if we go to all these places? What if we really kick our life off together with a total bang and have real life experiences together, and memories that we can draw from our whole lives, rather than cramming them to the end, our final years at retirement, we just realized we couldn't bank on any of that. And we got to get started now, and life is short. We're young, we're healthy, let's go.
And people were like, you know, there was some naysayers in the beginning that were kind of like, oh, but the risk, like, you've got, you know, these great jobs in New York and you're making great salaries, and what are you going to do about, like, your kids and their education and, like, getting a bigger home in the suburbs, and, like, you know, you shouldn't take this risk, like, and I was like, but you think you're going to wait until you're 65 and you think you're going to have Social Security, money, you think your knees are going to work, you're going to be able to hike Machu Picchu and sleep on a dirt floor in Cambodia and do all these things that right now you're dreaming of, like being on a sailboat for 6 months. Whatever your dream is, do you really think that that's going to happen at 65? To me, that's a much higher risk than me giving up a year of my job, you know, to go out and, you know, granted spend money to do this adventure, but just have such ridiculous adventures and memories that you'll now have from age 30 to 80 as opposed to from 65 to 80, and you'll just be a better person, more worldly, more friendly, you know, no more people, no more things. I think it's just invaluable to do as early as possible in your life.
I think you touched on something that a lot of people don't realize, and that this can be much cheaper. Yeah, I'm getting a huge echo.
It's probably not from us. Our volume's down pretty low.
I think it is, because it would have to be coming from the speaker and the microphone hearing it. Now
Can we try one more time, and then we'll grab a headset if it's not working.
Okay, now it's kind of gone away. Anyways, I think what a lot of people don't realize is they're looking at travel on the basis of going on vacation. And it's not like you get a discount on your rent or your mortgage while you're off traveling. Whereas if you just kind of go for an extended period of time and you forego a lot of the expenses you have, the rent, the utilities, the gas, and everything else, it can be a lot cheaper than what people are doing regularly. I just got an apartment for the first time, and my expenses have gone up quite a bit in that I now have to pay all those things. And all the flights I make are going to be to from, instead of just going from place to place to place, which also cuts down your transportation fees.
No, absolutely, it is. That's also sort of the addiction of travel, is that it's you gain so much more than staying in one spot, and you realize that the conventional life that we once had is at a higher price, but doesn't seem nearly as fulfilling as when we kind of have seen the other side. So it's, you know, we're still nomadic 4 years in and don't really have a real end in sight. So. And
then when you talk about the cost, like earlier we were talking about Airbnb and house sitting and the sharing economy, which our lodging budget for at least the last year, we've been doing a lot more Airbnbs and house sitting. Our lodging spend for the entire year is under $2,000 for the whole 365 days of room nights, because we're not staying at the Hilton, we're not renting, you know, $1,000 a month apartment. So our lodging cost is way down. We also rent out. We still own a home in New York City, which we rent out, so that covers our mortgage. So there's an income stream. People think, oh, I've got a home and a mortgage, so I can't go because I'm locked into that. Well, I'm pretty sure someone can come close to paying your mortgage for you. If you want to travel in smaller stints, maybe you're a teacher and you want to go away for 2 months over the summer, well, you can Airbnb it and make more money than your mortgage if you're willing to do it in shorter stints on Airbnb. So your home is no longer a ball and chain on your ankle, because you can either Airbnb it or rent it out full time. And then finding lodging in places is not a huge expense, because you know, we Airbnb'd in the Dominican Republic for $15 a night with breakfast for 2 people. So it's $7 a person, and we both had a home-cooked breakfast, Wi-Fi, a phone that called the internet, and TV in our room, and air conditioning. Like, when those are your costs, and then you layer on flights, you know, we do 100% of our flights are on mileage. So we only pay taxes and airport fees. So our flights, we've taken 68 between the two of us flights over the last 4 years for free on miles. We've also paid for a few of the short haul flights, but now flights are, you know, if you're in the mileage game, that's no longer an excuse or an expense. So it's really like the whole industry is really on its head, and there's a lot of ways to hack it.
Well, I think your trip and your ongoing adventure is just an example that people have choices. I'm still in shock that somebody said to you that why would you do this because you need to get a house in the suburbs. I think that's crazy. But I think what you're doing is a lot of inspiration to people that might not know that they have choices. And you know what, I think what you're doing is wonderful, but somebody else might need more stability or more structure or less motion. But the point is, you can do whatever you want to do. And I think some people just don't realize that.
Absolutely. I feel like the number, I said it, I got my hair cut yesterday and was chatting with the guy, and he was like, wow, I would absolutely do that, but, my job wouldn't allow it. Our jobs didn't allow it. We just, made a choice, a personal choice in our lives. This is how we wanted to spend our time, and we'd have to give up certain things to make that happen. But what's important to you? But yeah, I think people just generally, they think, oh, my boss would never. You're like, no. You have to think outside of and what you are capable of doing and what you want to ask for yourself, not what someone is, letting you do or not letting you do. You can do whatever you want. It's your life,
Well, you two must have
travel. Oh, go ahead, Jen.
You two must have found a way to make money on the road and be digital nomads. I think that is a barrier for so many people where they probably don't own a house in a desirable city where they can rent it for lots of money. Say they just have an apartment and don't have the opportunity to sublet. How does one go from an office job to becoming a digital nomad where you can make enough money on the road to support yourself?
Well, I think the first thing, you got to start saving right now. Set up a separate account for your around-the-world trip. Let's say you're planning, you want to do a 6-month trip. Start saving now. Even if you're saving $10 a month, if you saved
a day,
$10 a day. If you save $10 a day into your travel account between the two of you, in 2 years, you would have the same budget we took to spend 6 months traveling around the world with flights and everything. So that's tangible to put $10 away in a travel account. That'll get you going, because you can't expect to go right on the road and within the first week have paychecks coming in from freelance writing or affiliate deals or your website or whatever. But if you have a good little runway there to get out on the road, and if you want to go the blogging route to start building content and an audience and whatnot. But I think there's also so many other ways to make money, with freelance opportunities, like my brother, who just did a 5-month trip around the world, and he doesn't have a website. They didn't do a Facebook page for their trip, but he's an accountant. So he went on to Elance, picked up small accounting gigs, and he made more money doing accounting. I think he did it about 2 to 3 days a week than he was spending on his trip. So he could have continued going indefinitely for multiple years, just being a virtual accountant for clients in San Francisco and New York that would rather pay him $30 an hour than a local person $130 an hour to do their taxes, but he can do it from anywhere. So there's little things like that where people have a lot of skills that everyone thinks, oh, I need to be a travel blogger, I need to take beautiful photos and sell them or get ad space or whatever, but that's a very hard niche to crack. I mean, it's the one that we're doing. That's our main income is Honey Trek and various iterations of that, but I think people have a lot of other skills, whether it's proofreading or writing or graphic design, that they can use to fund their trip. And then there's also a lot of on-the-ground things. If people want to travel slowly, they can work at a B&B or a hostel, or do something in Australia and make money on the ground and then fund their trip that way. We know a lot of people who do 3 months in Australia and then 9 months in Southeast Asia and then back to Australia for 3 months
to make
fund
money
a whole
at a higher
nother.
rate.
They can fund 9 months of travel in Southeast Asia on 3 months of work. So there's so many ways to skin it. Money is far down the list of the reasons people should not be doing a long-term trip.
Because it's also that to go for 4 years indefinitely is a whole separate category. But I think people taking a 6-month trip, a year-long trip, it doesn't. You should build that runway so that you can walk away, and you pick the places accordingly and your activities accordingly so it fits within your budget. But I mean, just the value of taking a gap year, a sabbatical for your own, personal mental growth, and piece. That we are huge proponents of that, and actually we started. We were like, what do we do with all this knowledge? Like, we feel like we've learned so much, and we made plenty of mistakes along the way to learn those lessons, that we actually started something called Trip Coach. So Honey Trip Coach is basically being that personal coach for that anyone who wants to take a trip longer than that 2-week vacation, to be able to learn more about independent travel, to do it affordably, to learn how to collect frequent flyer miles, different lodging hacks, and health and safety. We cover all the topics that are barriers to entry, because it's a really scary thing to say, I'm going to put my life as I know it on hold and just travel into the into the distance. I remember those feelings doing planning for this trip, and we wanted to be that mentor and that friend for other people considering such a journey, because it is possible. It doesn't need to be 4 years, but you'll gain a lot even from 3 months of stepping away from your life for a while.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about some of your Trip Coach clients, and maybe what your rates are and what different travelers can get out of your consultations.
Yeah, so clients range from, we just had a pair of clients that are 21 years old to young, soon-to-be travelers from Florida. He's been to the Bahamas once, and she was to London for like a 1-month little internship abroad. Those are the only two, England and the Bahamas are the only 2 countries they've ever been to in the world, and they want to set out on a 12-month or an indefinite trip around the world. They do want to do the Australia work, go to Asia, and just travel as long as possible. So that's one example of a client. Then we've got a lot of
one extreme,
truly
jumping into it.
Young client. We've got 20s and 30s something solo female travelers that want to go anywhere from 6 months to a year. We've got a 45-year-old lawyer who was working in LA and just decided he wanted a new life before he moved back east, and he had saved up some money. So he went on, his was 12 months, he went on a 12-month R2W. And then we've got clients that are 65 years old and looking to move abroad, to be expats abroad, and wondering, maybe how to start a small business or bring in some revenue streams while they're living in Cuenca or Vietnam. So a pretty wide variety of people looking to either be nomadic or take a trip. Pretty much any trip we say longer than a month, you could use a lot of the skills that we've gained.
And also that they're skills for a lifetime of travel, so that you will become that much savvier about frequent flyer miles and how you choose your lodging and your route and local experiences. So that was actually really sweet that a girl that took our power course, which is a 3-hour course, then we have a master course, which is 2 sessions, 3 hours apiece, and then it always comes with support. People contact us from the road. Oh my gosh, I came across this problem. What do you think? So you're kind of like a lifeline on the road, before and after. So that's been really nice. We've created long relationships with these people, and they're all friends now. But say we had this client, Hai Feng. She's actually from Vietnam. We've had clients from Peru. It's been very interesting how international it's become too. But she said, oh my God, even though I was just in travel around the States, this would be so helpful. Like, I wish I knew this stuff earlier. I've been traveling my whole life and didn't know this, that. So it's really like a skill set that you can build from no matter where you're going or for how long you're going.
And the power course that Ann was describing, which covers every topic in a little more succinct manner than the master course, but the power course is $325. And it's both of us on a Skype. It's one-on-one, so there's no pre-recorded things. There's no group sessions. It's just the traveler and us. And beforehand, we spend a week or so getting ready for that. We send a questionnaire to the traveler to find out their budget, their goals, where they've been, how they travel, what they pack, everything about them as a traveler. And then we take that in. We come up with some itinerary suggestions for them, and we tailor all of our tips and tricks to what their skill sets are and how to help them save a lot of money, like thousands of dollars, well more than the cost of just their trip, and not to mention all the skills they'll use going forward. And it's been great. I mean, it's a little bit of a revenue source for us, but we just love inspiring people. And when you get on these calls and people, they start the call and they're like all frazzled and they're excited, but then by the end of the call, their eyes are just like so wide open, and they're like thanking us for these tips. And then on the trips, like we have numerous clients that are on trips around the world right now numerous clients who've been back from their trip, and like they do us video testimonials from the road, just like some we ask for, some we don't. They're just thanking us and following their blogs. It's just like so inspiring to see these people. And that's the main reason we do it, is just trying to get more people out on long-term trips and just becoming better travelers, becoming better humans, and seeing the world from a different angle. Because I think a lot of people, even people in our industry that are travel bloggers and professional fam trippers, let's call them, like they jump in, they do 10 days on a bus tour of some place, and then they jump out and they have beautiful photos and they've stayed in beautiful hotels. But when you're doing that kind of tour, it's way different than when you're a month in a region with no reservations, with no plans, with no route, with no flights booked, no buses booked. You're eating super local street food, you're staying in locals' homes. Like, that is such a different thing than going to the Eiffel Tower and, eating a beautiful croissant and taking a selfie, a good Instagram post. Like, it's such a different thing that we're trying to inspire people to get after. And yeah, I'm kind of getting a little choked up thinking about it. But.
I have a question for you guys.
Shoot.
How much traveling did you do before you were married? Because I'm thinking that knowing whether you can travel with someone, that's a hell of a thing to find out after you're married. Because if you're like, oh my God, I can't stand this.
Good question, Gary.
That is good.
Well, we had been dating a couple months, and this was in 2006, and we're like, the Castros could die any minute. Cuba could open. So in 2006, meanwhile the Castros are still alive and well, and Cuba's now opening, on a formal level. We went. That was our first trip for Valentine's. We went illegally to Cuba. We snuck in through the Bahamas, and so I think that sort of said something about our sense of adventure and, willingness to just jump into anything together. So that's really set the tone.
But I think that was still, a 2-week trip, and we did a lot of 2-week trips. From 2006, we departed. We quit our jobs in December 11, and we departed in January 12. And we did mostly 10-day, 2-week trips up until then. So we had never done we've never done a month or multi-month or obviously multi-year trip together. And you do never know. And I think that's another big fear people have. And that's one thing that we teach people is, one, how to do maybe a little practice run trip, but 2, also how to have like a ripcord. Well, 1, and 3, how to deal with each other. So there's going to be problems, just like in any relationship. There's issues that come up and you deal with them. They're a lot different when you're together 24 hours a day and making every decision really quick and on the road, but you learn to deal with those, so we teach that. And then we did have a ripcord, so we said, hey, if we're out there for 3 months, we're going to set our flight path to come back through the States, and if we want to stop, well, that's it. We'll just stop. But we said that once in 3 months, then we went around it again in a year, and then again in a year and a half, and here we are 4 years later, and like the ripcord's still there. We can stop anytime we want. It's not like if you say, I'm going to go on a 1-year trip, well, you have to be out there for 365 days or you failed. Like, there's so many different ways to do it, and we just happen to be, I think most people would, you find a way to get along together, and you just learn a different way of living that seems kind of foreign when you're in your normal 9 to 5. But
it is, it could be very make or break for different people, but you do become a team. Like, you are each other's everything on lots of levels. Like, you're out there for each other, and you can only grow stronger and closer, I think. So.
Oh, another funny thing. When we started doing Trip Coach, people were asking us that, like especially friends, like, well, you guys are different. Like, you're Mike and Ann. You gel so well together, but you're going to be coaching these other people, and they're just going to get out there and like be fighting like I would with my husband. And we've had over 30 clients in Trip Coach so far, and probably maybe a little over half, 15 or 18 of them are couples. And of those 15 to 18, probably 10 or 12 have been on an around the world trip, and we've got a 0% fail rate. So all 12 couples are still together, loving their trips. They're back home, working normal jobs. So so far we haven't had any couples that we've coached that had an adverse reaction.
All right. Any more before we move on to our picks of the week?
Well, where are you guys headed next? What's coming up in 2016?
Should be.
We just got back from. We actually did do a fam trip. our first fam trip actually was down to the Dominican Republic. So that was a lot of fun. And then before that, we did a self-guided trip, a little bit of work, a little bit of pleasure through the Bahamas. And then we were down at T-Bex in Florida. So those were kind of 3 recent trips. And then we've been on, well, they say it's the world's longest honeymoon, for whatever that's worth on Google. But we've only been to 6 continents. So we've got that one elusive Antarctica still, like, right down here. We don't even have it on the map because it hasn't been visited yet. But that's high on the map or high on the list, and we're shooting to go with some company. We reached out to 4 or 5 different companies that go in January or February of this year, and we're hoping that they maybe have some last-minute seats, and they'd love a pair of honeymoon journalists to make a little splash as our 7th continent. So that's some hope that we get to Antarctica over the next 2 months.
But we're also, so this is a big piece, is that we're working on a book about couples adventures with National Geographic. So that is, we got our outline from our editor of like due dates, and we're like, ooh, that all needs to happen really fast. So we need to take a few months after we get to Antarctica, hopefully, to just sit down and write. So we've been looking for different house sits and in inspiring places, preferably a little warmer. Could it be in Santorini, in Spain, in Costa Rica? We're kind of casting our net right now to see where would be a really good place to base camp for 2 or 3 months and just sit and focus and write.
Yeah. Other than that, we're open.
Yeah.
We'll go anywhere.
We'll be in Portugal over the summer for a bit too.
All right, let's move on to our picks of the week then. Jen, what do you got for us?
Well, I just came back from Park City, Utah, and I stayed at a really impressive hotel. I shared it with my husband and my daughter, so it was definitely a luxe trip, and we stayed at the Washington Schoolhouse. It used to be a schoolhouse, as the name suggests, and they've converted it completely renovated it into a luxe boutique hotel with only 12 rooms and suites. And I think that prior to this experience, I sort of don't want to take Cora on luxe trips or luxe stays. I don't know why. I just don't want her to be exposed to that much, and this hotel completely proved me wrong there. I was shocked at how family-friendly this posh boutique hotel was. Not just for people in the business, but for every single guest. When they have a child come, they find out how old that child is, and then they pull gifts from their, it's not even a gift store, it's a shelf. They have shelves of local gifts and local, I don't know, toys or water bottles or drawing instruments or very cool things. And when they find out that a child is coming, they find out the age, and they leave a gift for the child to start off the trip. And I was just, everything they did, it never made me feel like, oh, you brought a kid with you. Cora's 7. We were there for a ski trip. They made us feel so welcome. And I don't know why I would think that a super posh place with European antiques and modern art would be different, but it really surprised me. And anyway, we had a beautiful time. It was right on Main Street in Park City. We went skiing at Deer Valley and Park City, and then over to Sundance. And coming from Southern California, we usually we know people that go to Mammoth for skiing. We usually go to Tahoe because I spent some time living there and it's near and dear to my heart. But another shocking thing was that Park City was so much easier to get to than Tahoe. It was just a short, direct plane flight, and we were there. And anyway, we had a wonderful time, and we're going to be back. But I do want you to look into the Washington Schoolhouse, whether you're going away for a romantic ski retreat with completely full service, 24/7. They had this living room, which was sort of the focal point of the house. and with a big fireplace, and people would come there for breakfast, for après-ski. When you check in, you never take your credit card out again. You are greeted with drinks and charcuterie and desserts, and I just wanted to live in that living room by that fireplace. And yeah, so very family friendly. Don't judge a book by its cover. They couldn't have been more accommodating to us as a family and friendly and knowing our names. And anyway, it really changed my opinion of what a luxe property could be towards a family.
Sounds like we'll need to do our next call from there.
All right, so my pick this week is an online service site that helps you manage your Instagram account. Not really travel related so much, but it's called appaction.io, APPACTION.io. And what it does is you just post something to Instagram as you normally would, and then you can tell it to repost to Twitter or Facebook. And it will, normally if you say post to Twitter within the Instagram app, it won't post a photo. If you do it through this, it will post a photo. And it also keeps very accurate stats about every single post you make, whether it performed above or below average for you in terms of comments and likes, your total posts, followers, everything. So it's just a very handy little thing in terms of being able to use Instagram and work with it with some other platforms you might be using. Also does a really good job with Facebook. So it's appaction.io.
Good one, Gary.
Mike and Ann, you got anything for us?
Yeah. There you go.
Can we do one each?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay. So our love for the sharing economy, and be it peer-to-peer sharing, sharing cars, sharing homes, sharing houses, sharing tools, sharing equipment. I mean, it's just amazing the opportunities that are arising through this. But it's a space that's growing really quickly, and it's all over the place. One website that centralizes them all, because there are now over 80,000 different. 80,000 from their website. I read this. 80,000 companies that are participating in the sharing economy in some way, shape, or form, be it startups or long-standing services. Then this website basically lets you put in what you're looking for, what you're looking to do, what you're looking to share, and finds the best sites for that service. So, before you go out and buy a kayak, check to see on Share and Compare if someone's loaning their kayak. If you've got that, if you want a more exciting dining experience, well, there are bajillions of sites now that let, have chefs opening up their home to cook you a local delicacy. So it's a really interesting way to approach travel, and a great way to navigate it now is check out compareandshare.com.
So it's compare and share?
Yes.
Good find, really good find. I've been doing some research on sharing economy outlets, and what I've found is they seem to be really great for some few big metro cities, but not so much when you get to the medium size or smaller cities, especially when it comes to sharing equipment. Mm-hmm. So I'm really interested into this site to see if it can expand my horizons on what I've found in terms of renting.
The good thing about this site is that there are a lot of more regional ones. It'll be like Charlotte tool sharing and like different regions of the country. And I think to your point, it is in the metro one because people are thinking that way and they're a little closer and they don't have room to have a table saw and a surfboard in their apartment, so they're much more into sharing. But I think once it starts there, it'll slowly spread out across the country.
But it's great for just brainstorming. Say, for example, there was one that was called, I believe it was Sofa Concerts, or I think it was Sofa Concerts. And it's only in Germany. But basically, it's musicians or people who have great spaces for performances connecting those two, so that it'll be like a live band who will play at a party, or someone who's like, I'd love to have live music at my event, or I'm a band who wants to get their music out to a community, and it's matching those two things up. So I want to go to Germany now just to try out Sofa Concerts. So you never know what you'll find.
Nice.
Yeah. And my pick of the week is just a really awesome site that I'm super passionate about. I actually started working with them. We're doing a little partnership with Honeytrek and this company, and they pair travel and giving back, which is, you know, two things very near and dear to my heart, and something I think more travelers should get into. And they address and severely stop any risk of volunteerism, right? We've all heard that in the news.
Movingworlds.org, did you say that yet?
No, it's going to go
No, I think movingworlds.org, they're great. But continue.
So Moving Worlds basically vets organizations, whether they're nonprofits or benefit corporations from around the world, and they find projects of varying lengths, anywhere from 1 week projects to a year-long projects. They're all projects that you don't need to pay $500 or $1,000 a week to build a home or work in an orphanage. The companies that are on Moving Worlds are looking for your skills, 100%. They're not trying to raise funds and create some phantom projects like we've all read about in Cambodia with fake orphanages that aren't real kids, but you donate money to be able to play with them. These guys are all about really moving the needle for whether it's environmental nonprofits or human trafficking, or somebody's got a great idea in Buenos Aires and they need somebody with marketing skills, and what they call it experteering. So kind of a new term they're trying to coin. Where volunteering, you're just there. A lot of times it's just your time or your money and a little bit of skills. These guys are saying, are you an accountant? Do you know how to do social media marketing? Do you run your own WordPress website? Do you do public speaking? Whatever your skill. Are you a photographer? Can you go and help these people learn how to take better pictures for their website about protecting the gorillas in Uganda, because it's a little startup there? So they pair you based on what your skills are, what region of the world you want to go to, and a company that needs your assistance. And it is a small membership fee. I think it's $100, and we actually have a discount. If anybody's interested, you can go over to Honeytrek. Right on the homepage, we did an interview with the CEO of the company, and then there's a little discount. But it's $100 to join Moving Worlds, and it's a membership for life, so you never have to re-up. You can go travel as many times as you want. And like I said before, they pair you with companies that don't want your money, so they're not going to send you to some place who says, oh, we'd love if you donate money of $500, you know, a week to be able to volunteer. They want you to become part of their team or to bring some skill to the table that can help them become a better organization. So it's a really awesome thing that I think more travelers should get into, and they'll hop on the phone with you if they don't have an opportunity and you want to go to, Cambodia, or if you want to go to Kenya and they don't have something there, well, they'll reach out to their organizations on the ground and see where they can place you. So it's a really great group of guys. And yeah, if you want to read the interview, you can go to Honeytrek or just go to movingworlds.org. They're on Twitter at experteering. And yeah, just a great organization that's trying to do a lot of good in the world, and we're happy to be working with them.
Nice. Thank you for mentioning that, Mike, because I remember when I first met you, we were talking about this, and I thought that would be a great addition to the podcast. So thanks thanks for adding that.
I should also say that I'm going to be starting a website that is going to be kind of the antithesis of the sharing economy. It's going to be the selfish economy. You can list things that other people can't have because they're yours.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah, someone put my apartment up and be like, you can't stay here.
Places that people can't go.
All right, let's start to wrap things up. Jen, where can people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at @JenLeo and on the LA Times Travel website for my WebBuzz column. There's a good one coming up this week if you want to check that out on Sunday. And live, you can check me out in Charleston. I know we have a couple of Charleston listeners from Charleston, and I will be returning there for New Year's.
Excellent. Mike and Ann, where can people find you online?
We are honeytrek.com, so HONEYTREK.com, and then we're at Honeytrek on every social media you can imagine, from Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, Facebook, YouTube. We're the Honeytrek on YouTube, and yeah, but we blog pretty regularly. Facebook's a great place to see more real-time fun Honeytrek stuff, but That's us. We're Honey Trek everywhere.
And when you guys tweet, which one of you is doing the tweeting? Because I know several couples that have like a blog and they have one Twitter account and I never know which one it is.
It's true. It's very mysterious. We sort of divide. If it's on Twitter, it's definitely Mike. If it's on Facebook, it's largely me. Instagram, it's a mix. But, you know, we always talk about what we're about to post anyway, so it's us.
Yeah, everything's collaborative. We rarely post without like saying across the room, hey, what do you think about this over on Twitter? Or what do you think about this on Instagram? So it's a pretty collaborative and fun process.
Thank you, and as usual, you can find me at everything-everywhere.com, and coming up over the next 2 weeks on the Global Travel Conspiracy, I'll be interviewing Bruce Poon-Tip, who is the founder of G Adventures, and then on my New Year's Eve show, I did a roundtable with former guests of This Week in Travel, Jody Ettenberg, Shannon O'Donnell, Audrey Scott, and Daniel Knoll, where we talk about all the places we traveled in 2015 and where we're looking to go in 2016. So until next time, make sure to get outside, and if you go on a honeymoon, try to at least do it for a year.
I love it. I love it.